Hello, this is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Hope you enjoy this video. Hello everybody, this is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Welcome to another episode of Game Wisdom Live. This is going to be for the week of October 13th, 2016. We got a pretty interesting week. Still, unfortunately, no new Patreon subscribers, but we definitely got a record turnout of new subscribers on the channel since we last did this. As of right now, we're sitting at 789 subscribers on YouTube, and we are inching ever so slowly over to 800. So for everyone who's been watching this, thank you so much for tuning in. Also, before we get going with the show tonight, I'm going to announce we have a live play tomorrow. That will be October 14th at 2 p.m. on Twitch. Our Star Vikings developer live play unfortunately got shifted around due to those nasty time zones. So if everything goes accordingly, we'll be able to show that off tomorrow. Now, as for tonight, first, we have a few people on. My co-host, as always, James Ellerby.
Howdy, guys.
And joining us from a Paladin Without Crusade.com, fan of Game Wisdom and frequent podcast guest, Tim Wetzel.
Good evening.
Tim, it's great to have you on. I know this is going to be your first time on the live show, but you've been doing these podcasts with us a few times now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting with less editing.
Yes, and no cutting things out if there's a problem. Let me see. I'm trying to get the stream to look just right so we can see both your lovely icons in our little window here. Let's see. I think that should be good, but we'll see if things start to get all screwy as time goes on. All right. So, for this week, if you've missed it, the Patreon campaign for Game Wisdom is currently running the early bird pricing rewards until the end of October. So if you'd like to support the site, support everything we do here, and get yourselves a little discount, you have until October 31st to get that done. Otherwise, we'll go back to the normal pricings come November 1st. So with that said, I think let's get into this week's show. I guess to start things off with, I want to catch up with both of you, and we'll start with James. So what have you been doing this week? Have you been playing any interesting games?
I've been sick this week. Well, I mean, me and my lady have been a little bit under the weather, but I've been catching up on. Been playing a little bit of Payday, a little bit of Smite. I stopped Darkest Dungeon after my, I think, 17th guy has died, and the rest of them have all gone mad. So I put down the controller. I will return when my sanity has gotten better than the people that are on my team. So, and actually really looking forward to the actually I'm having fun. Really, I'm having a lot of fun with Darkest Dungeon. It is very souls frustrating, but I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm anxiously awaiting the release for Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2.
Cool. So I know when we last spoke previously, you talked about getting into Darkest Dungeon. I was curious to see what was going to happen when you got later in terms of sort of like the grind that happens. How far did you I guess get in terms of like the main game progression?
Well, I mean, and here's the weird thing. I can't really, I wouldn't, again, I haven't played it as long as you have, so I wouldn't really even know how to describe the progress I've made. And that's actually is probably one of my few complaints about the game is, despite how hard it is, I'm not seeing progress, or what I still haven't fully grasped what progress is supposed to look like in the game. I mean, and another roguelike I used to play was Rogue Legacy, and in there was a general there were bosses, there were, I understand there's bosses in Darkest Dungeon, but Rogue Legacy was very I felt like Rogue Legacy was it was more defined of what you're actually doing. Even though it feels like with both Darkest Dungeon and Rogue Legacy, you're doing the exact same thing. You're exploring a giant castle. There's bosses that you fight, and you level up your characters. Although I felt like Rogue Legacy made it a lot more obvious as what you're doing as opposed to Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon, I've fallen right now into the grind factor,
Hmm.
and because of the mechanics of the game, it kind of makes grinding more of a chore. Not that it's a bad chore, just a chore. So
Hmm.
I think the progress, and this is only through 30 hours of play of Darkest Dungeon, I think the progress is more or less defined by the story pieces that you start picking up and the big boss fights that you're supposed to have. And
mm.
you're just supposed to defeat them until you get to like the darkest dungeon. So I think that's the general idea. I wouldn't dispute though that there's a bit of a grind going on, especially if you, I don't know, wipe out your entire team due to a boss basically just ripping you apart.
Or opening up a random chat or opening up a random mirror thing, and then suddenly Cthulhu's brother shows up, and you're
Hmm.
like, "Oh wow, I was just looking for a low level grind. Hey buddy,
Hmm.
what's
Hmm.
up?" Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into that once. It didn't end well. They finally escaped with one person and he went insane and killed himself.
uh,
Hmm.
It's
That's
like, well, that happened.
that's pretty much the Darkest Dungeon experience, I think, for a lot of people.
yeah.
And I think that was kind of like the issue that I had with the game is that, again, like, it just seems like you make progress in inches in in Darkest
Oh
Dungeon.
yeah.
Centimeters even.
Yeah.
I'd even go to say centimeters, but yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm curious to like hear like how it's doing like on the PSN or PlayStation
Oh
4
yeah,
front.
oh definitely. I'd love to see the sales figures, or even talk to the people that are looking at that, the developers and whatnot, and see what what it's getting from that community, especially.
Yeah, because again, the game has been out for the PC for over a year now, and I know we talked about this last time that it's going to be interesting to see like how that audience will respond to a game like The Darkest Dungeon, where you
Hmm.
can easily lose hours of progress with one unlucky roll of the dice when it comes to a boss.
Yeah, definitely. And this is one of these. Remember, me and you were talking before about roguelikes coming to console, and those almost games that have been exclusively PC only, making
Hmm.
their breakthrough in consoles. And I'd have to say that Darkest Dungeon is one of the heavier roguelikes to come
Hmm.
to console. So it's again, I'd love to see the numbers on that. I'd love to see the see what people are saying about it too.
It's
Hmm.
kind of funny that consoles are getting like the roguelikes that weren't exclusive, but they had always just been PC primarily. They're
Yeah,
getting those and maybe some of the MOBA stuff,
Hmm.
more like Smite and Paladins, they're way more accessible.
yeah.
And we're getting like the really Japanese stuff that used to be very console exclusive.
Console exclusive.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's interesting that we're seeing that switch around, and
Yeah.
I'm happy for it. Trust me, console or PC exclusivity does nothing but piss me off because when I see a review for a game that looks interesting and looks slightly down the review and only for Xbox and PS4, it's like, well, close that tab because I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You
Oh,
can't care because I can't buy a console.
Hmm.
uh,
I don't want to. It's not that I can, but
Hmm.
and I'm the exact same way on the opposite end of the spectrum. Hey, the new World of Warcraft, League of Legends, whatnot, and I'm like, my computer has problems running Facebook. So
mm,
we're like,
yeah.
and I do
Hmm.
like seeing a marriage of the two worlds. And I mean, keep in mind, just our very podcast in nature, you have, both. And I think everywhere, now let's put it this way: Microsoft and Sony have been a lot more friendly when it comes to the marriage between PC and console. Now we just need to get Nintendo on
Hmm.
board. We need to get Nintendo
Yeah.
on the train because they are holding on to their console exclusivity like it's
Hmm.
fallen off of them.
Quick
So
Yeah.
quick side note. Did anyone hear this little article about Steam? Eventually, they're going to implement an update here soon where you can configure the PS4 controller from the big picture menu.
No.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I thought that's the best thing I've ever heard. but it's crazy too. It's like, huh, okay.
Hmm.
I guess it's trying to get more people. I'm trying to see why. Why would they want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I have
Just
my lovely 360 controller right here. For those of you watching this, like with the video, you can see it right now. But
Hmm.
I mean, that's been considered like the quote unquote standard gamepad for the PC side. Maybe they're trying to offer the option for the PlayStation 4.
I think they do want big picture to have a lot more support, and they would certainly like to see like Linux support
Hmm.
and their TV device, be seen as more accessible. Because if you're only selling one controller for it, and it's not a bad controller, it takes a bit to get used
Hmm.
to. But if you add support for other controllers, then that's just a win in the long run.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 And speaking of Nintendo, we'll be coming back to talk to them most likely in a few minutes because we have a little bit of a topic to discuss. But I think going back to what you guys were saying, it's kind of interesting to see again, and we talked about this on our upcoming podcast when Tim joined us for recording, about again how we're seeing Japanese games being ported to the PC and more PC games are being ported to the consoles. And it's been something that we've been definitely been wanting for a long time. About I think like 5 6 years ago, there was that big push for games for Windows Live, which was
Oh,
supposedly I know it hurts to mention
oh,
that.
oh, why did you have to remind me of that? Oh,
Who am I kidding? I had to use that for Age of Empires online. I should be also
oh.
hurting. And
There's only one game in my library that still uses it, and it sucks so much because that game really deserves a second chance of
mm,
life, but they'll never update it, unfortunately.
mm,
So,
yeah,
uh,
yes, I and like again with that shall not be named again was supposed to be the bridge between the Xbox and Windows, and of course it completely flopped. Now, a friend was telling me that the new Gears of War game features cross-platform playability or compatibility.
mm,
Cross-platform. Wait, what do you
Like
mean?
Xbox One and PC, you can play it. Gears
that
of
Huh.
makes me dubious because, I mean, maybe for single player, that's a really great idea. If you have synchronized so you can play it on the TV or on your
Yeah.
PC.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
trust me, I don't know why they still haven't done that for most other games like Microsoft. Really freaking big market
Mm-hmm.
there. Don't know if you noticed.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, really.
I could not see that's not going to work for multiplayer. I mean, just look at Overwatch
Mm-hmm.
as a prime example. The PC the PCs they have to update, and they have to update differently for
Mm-hmm.
PC and for console. They have to make changes to
Mm-hmm.
characters differently from PC to console.
Yeah.
On console, Widowmaker is a is a non-existent character
Mm-hmm.
versus PC. Or especially the early days, she was god tier
Mm-hmm.
because she was a sniper, and people have different aiming
Oh
abilities.
yeah.
So I don't see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
So
yeah.
let me clarify. You're not wrong as far as like multiplayer is concerned. The two universes should definitely be separated because
Mm-hmm.
just
Keyboard, mouse versus gamepad.
damn cough.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, because keyboard versus mouse versus controller loses every single time. I mean,
Yes.
there's just no way to go around that. And I won't dispute that, but if you do like single player synchronizing between the platforms,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
fine by me. It's
Yeah,
not
that
going to
would be
give
fun.
you a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Gears of War is available on the Windows 10 store. I just looked this up.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say that. Oh yeah, it is cross-platform multiplayer. Oh no.
Cross-platform multiplayer.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh.
That
Because even with like Smite and Paladins, the developers Hyra said flat out at the beginning, no, the two audiences will be separated. We
Yes.
don't.
Yeah.
We've looked into it. It
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't work. I think even no, that was something else. But yeah, if they're doing cross, oh my gosh, no, Microsoft. That's already ruining your community right out the gate. Good lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That right there just shows me that just shows that they don't. I feel like either they just don't understand or they think they're gonna squeeze out a couple extra bucks making it cross-platform.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like
Well,
I don't know.
the other thing is it's on Windows 10 Store,
Mm.
and that right there is already a problem because
Mm.
just pound for pound compare because like okay, um, what was the previous one that was exclusive to Windows 10? Oh, it was that single
Mm-hmm.
player shooter by the guys that made Alan Wake. Oh, come on.
Um, Quantum Break.
Yeah, Quantum Break. Even it's coming over to Steam because they're like, oh, right, there's problems with running it on the Windows 10 store. So that's going to be released soon if it hasn't already been released.
I think it is. In one of my late night looking for like press copies and games to play, I think I may have picked that up. But again,
Oh, you lucky.
it just seems like I get the funniest thing. I was talking about this last week. I posted about my Alone in the Dark Let's Play. I thought I own that for the PC. I don't need to buy it again. Then I go in my library, go, where the hell is it? And I realized like for the first time, I thought I owned a game, but I didn't. Usually it's the
Oh.
other way around. I go, oh, that game looks good. Let me buy that. Wait, I already own it. When did I
Hmm.
buy it? As a quick tangent, did either of you? I assume neither of you. Did you do the free update to Windows 10 when they offered it?
I did.
Okay. How would you find it?
I initially wasn't. I guess it was a much better upgrade than like XP to Vista or 7 to 8
Mm-hmm.
was. I will give Microsoft that props because, oh lord, those are bad upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
And they just did the recent big update that kind of fixed a lot of my issues with how the UI was built.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't have any real complaints with it. The performance seems about the same for me. There's been no
Mm-hmm.
outstanding bugs or issues, and I think they fixed what few I'd noticed, but it hadn't bothered me enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, more or less recommendation at this point. We're all kind of just screwed on this train anyway, as far as Windows is concerned.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
didn't do the upgrade. I figured I might as well hold on for dear life until the very last possible second.
Which, from what I've heard, there's still some games that perform better on 7.
Mm-hmm.
So, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
I might be getting some inferior experiences and not realize it's just Windows not keeping up.
Eh.
But my computer is bad enough that I think, oh, it's just the CPU acting up again, can't hold up. So,
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else going on? I guess for you, Tim, have you been playing the other interesting games?
since we last chatted, no, because I've been dealing with personal drama matters, to put it very lightly.
Mm-hmm.
I have been playing, though, kind of just rotating between Smite, Paladins, and Overwatch,
Mm-hmm.
just depending on who's online and who wants to play. And then a bit of Risk of Rain, yeah, and what else? I know there's something else for some reason. Oh, Chronicle RuneScape Legends for the recent video I just put out. So,
Cool. I guess for me, it seems I've been getting busier and busier this week. I've been preparing for a little presentation I'm giving tomorrow regarding some
mm,
programs for like teaching people about video games. So I've been sort of relaxing, getting ready for that one. But for games, let's see. Payday 2's been doing their big 10 days of free content. So I've been logging back in, checking things out there. I wish, like, speaking about crossplay, I would love if we had that with, like, the PlayStation 4 so James and I could play together.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I think that would be great.
I think the only major game I remember doing that was Portal 2.
Hmm.
And it surprises me that we still haven't had anything since then
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah. I also got a look at Slime Rancher. It was like an open world,
What
like
was that?
you're running like a farm where you have like like these slime creatures, and you have to like feed them, keep them happy, and stuff like that. So it's definitely more on the casual,
Mhm.
friendlier side, of like the open-ended kind of games. But
Mhm.
it's all right. I know it's been in development for like a very long time. Right now, I think they're at version point 36 or point 3.6, something like that.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's not, it's good, but I don't think it's like at the same state where something like Subnautica is right now,
Hmm.
Mm.
where you can you have like that progression curve set up already. But I mean, it's not a bad game. I'm curious to see like how they're going to take it further though. Now, speaking about games in early access and that kind of distinction, the big announcement this week, at least for me, is that Clockwork Empires is officially coming out and going to 1.0 as of October 26th.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of two minds about this. I think we spoke about this when we spoke on the podcast, Tim, James, and I. And when we spoke, that was like about like I think like 3 weeks ago, according to like I think in terms of this like stream. But I was talking about how the latest beta patch was really good. I was excited to see what they're going to do with it next. And then they announced like a few days ago that they're going to 1.0. And it's gotten a few people a little bit worried in the sense that we know what is left for them to add. We know what they were promising. And we're not sure if 1.0 is really going to, I guess, be like the best foot forward for that game. But it does raise that very tricky consideration about how do you know your game is ready for 1.0, especially if you go the early access route. So I guess for both of you, do you have any thoughts on that? Like when you see games that have gone early access, like when do you think it's a good time to say it's time for 1.0?
When you think the game is ready.
Mm-hmm.
But I would. You have to be careful with early access and how much you promise. There was
Mm-hmm.
one game I reviewed a while back where they went to early access like a little bit before I was given the press key to it. So I watched it for a while, played a little
Mm-hmm.
bit here and there. And then, like, a month or two later, they're like, oh, we're getting out of early access and releasing right away. And I'm like, um,
Mm-hmm.
here's my list of problems with your game. You're not going to do that in the next several weeks, are you? And nope. And so I kind of ripped them for that because it's just there were so many things they needed to work on,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not ready for release.
Yeah. And I mean, another good example is something like Goddess and the train wreck of
Oh,
that.
good lord.
Now, for you, James, since you mainly stuck to the consoles, have you like given a thought about games you would be interested in trying out, like on the early access model?
Um, to tell you the truth, and it's kind of funny, it relates back to what I was saying before. I kind of wish you always see. I mean, you're always going to see beta access for all the AAA games, but I'd really love to see some early access stuff on some more of the indie games, especially ones that have been coming out. Just to, I don't know. I think getting the feedback from the community, from the console community on indie games would also help developers give them crucial information on what people from that community are looking for, what people
Mm-hmm.
from that community are enjoying, and what they're willing to pay for too. Where it's like, you know, if they, no, I just think trying to see, I actually would encourage more early access for indie titles for console. At first, yeah, I mean, see where it goes, because as we can see, as we've seen before, there is many times, especially on PC, where early access has led to some disasters. So, I
Hmm.
think in the right hands, it could be used very effectively.
Yeah, and we've talked to numerous developers about this over the last few years, and how a lot of them are really changing their minds about using early access and what it can benefit. Now, here's another interesting piece of news. I think Tim, you're probably aware of this as well. I heard from Arkin Games that they just launched a Kickstarter for AI Wars 2.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that a little later. Yeah, they launched the Kickstarter, so
Mm-hmm.
it's apparently number one on Kickstarter. I heard that today, which is pretty darn impressive. And if it funds, they're going to be one of the top 10 projects funded this year for games.
Hmm.
So,
Let's take a look at that. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and look at it. So, it went up a few days ago. As we are streaming this right now, they are just under $45,000. They're looking for just under $300,000 for the game, and I'm definitely rooting for them. I mean, I know Tim, you're probably where we were both kind of watching what's been going on with Arkham Games over this last year. And I know
mhm.
they've definitely had some big hits to them over the last few months.
Yeah, they've had a rough year or so,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is something. I mean, not only is it like a 3D upgrade, which is a pretty darn big deal just from that
Yeah.
point of view, but they've got a lot of different mechanics to still make it AI war,
Mm-hmm.
but something I think it's clear that they want this to be a lot more accessible without dumbing it way the hell down.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be fair, there's a lot that they could trim out of the original game, and it
Yeah.
would still be a complex RTS that most don't even approach to.
Yeah.
It's one of
Definitely.
the strengths and weaknesses of the previous game, and the design document is just massive on what they want to do, and there are a lot of exciting mechanics I'd like to see them implement.
Yeah. I'm reading the Arkin Kickstarter while you're talking there, and I know, like, this was one of those very interesting things. They've been, trying their hands at all different kinds of games over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, we saw Skyward Collapse, then in case of emergency release, Raptor. Um, what was the last one they did? The Rogue shoot 'em up.
Star Wars Rogue.
Thank you. So many. It's kind of hard to keep track, but they've been definitely trying to strike gold again, or get another big win. I know they've really had trouble with that. I think Skyward Collapse was. I think that was their second best-selling game behind AI Wars.
Actually, that was The Last Federation.
Oh, Last Federation.
I think Skyward kind of
I know it
was a
came out.
break even for
Okay.
them, and then unfortunately the expansion was a bit of a loss
Hmm.
for some reason that just didn't resonate and it didn't sell very well.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
yeah.
I mean, I think as a fan of Ark, and I know you can definitely attest to this, they've definitely had a very tough time marketing their games, I think, to people, because we've seen them go in so many different directions with their designs.
Hmm.
Um, what was the. And I guess as a good example, I can remember their designs, so I'm having such a hard time remembering some of their names. The zombie-ish type game that came out was like a puzzle game.
Yeah, that was.
Even Tim
Oh
can't
man,
remember. That's
that one was kind of a hard one to remember to begin with. So I'm just gonna look this up real quick.
let's see who can look it up first. And while Tim's looking that up, I guess it goes back to like a discussion we had regarding accessibility versus, or I'm sorry, uniqueness versus refinement. And Arkin has definitely been on the end when it comes to uniqueness with their games. But they've certainly, I think, had trouble making them accessible to a wide audience. They've been, they have very,
Shattered,
I'm sorry?
Shattered Haven.
There we go. I would not have thought of that. But we were talking about this earlier with like them bringing over Darkest Dungeon to the consoles. I could not imagine a game from Arkham Games being selling well on a PlayStation 4.
Well, besides the fact that the game, well, except for maybe Bionic Dudes and Star Wars Rogue, they aren't generally made with the controller in mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's if it is supported, it's often an afterthought.
Yeah.
I take that back. I think Shattered Haven was also designed with controllers in mind, so. And A Valley Without Wind 1 and 2. Yeah, so never mind. Half the games have been with controller support in mind. And I don't know, would they do well on consoles? Maybe Star Wars Rogue would, but
Well, here's the thing. Don't look at it as a technical aspects, which I understand that I guess developers do have to do that to some point. But the how well a game does is also going to be based upon the audience that wants that game too.
yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's one of those things like if you're saying, I hate to say it, but it's like you're always going to have you're going to have a lot of trouble supporting PC play with a lot of fighting games. Now, you know what I mean? Not necessarily because the buttons didn't map correctly. No, more just in the fact that most people that play fighting games, and fighting game being a niche in the gaming industry, are on console anyway. They're going to be on console now, and until you make a game that is specifically attached itself to being a PC fighting game, you're gonna have those people. The audience for that crowd is going to be limited. Is going to be limited to the grouping to where it's at. Does that, if that makes any sense?
No, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? It's one of now. I mean, keep in mind, who would have thought that that there was even a MOBA market on console?
Well, the problem was that we never had MOBAs capable of being on that market. I know.
Not true. What was it? Lord of the Rings was the first. There is a Lord of the Rings MOBA.
Yes,
My
there
bad.
was.
I actually misspoke. I meant that with the current crop that we had before Smite kind of arrived on the scene, and maybe the Lord of the Rings ones, those weren't really capable of making the console move and being enjoyable.
Yeah.
But I think even with like Ark, and they've definitely, even with among like PC gamers, they've definitely, all their games really are outside of the box, which makes them very hard to sell. I think when I spoke with Adrian from Abbey Games with Renowned Explorers, he also said like it was very hard for them to pitch a game like that because they didn't really know how to describe it for people. And I think with Arkin, I know one thing we've spoken about is the art style that they've used for a lot of their games. And like again, like their games, unfortunately, they just don't give like a really good first impression, which is a shame. But it's just very hard to like get people excited when you see a screenshot for like A Valley Without Wind or The Last Federation. And here's a question for you, Tim. I only asked you this when we last spoke. As we both know, they were working on their city builder-esque strategy game. Let me see if I can. Do they
Stars Beyond Reach, probably.
Yeah, that one. And I know that it wasn't that they canceled it just simply because he didn't feel like it was really up to snuff. Were you excited about that game? Like, were you keeping an eye on that one?
I was keeping a distant eye on it at the time because I was busy with other projects. It was their take on 4X, which I was really curious to see because we've been wanting Arkin really tackle that genre. It got close, but they were having a really hard time. They had a lot of good mechanical ideas, but They couldn't
Mm-hmm.
figure out a good enough implementation to make them fun.
Yeah.
They were good, but actually playing through the game more than once, it was like, we just don't. And that
Yeah.
was a consistent problem towards the end, which is why they said, okay, we're putting it on the back burner until next year.
Yeah.
Because they were starting to bleed money,
I know.
unfortunately.
It,
Because they just it was the R&D making it work.
mm-hmm.
They couldn't find that right sweet spot.
Yeah.
As far as like the comment about marketing, and I don't mean to toot their own horn for them because I'm sure Chris could also say all this.
Mm-hmm.
They've definitely focused on that
Mm-hmm.
um, in the recent couple of games,
Yeah.
just trying to figure out good names for them, good catch lines, and just better marketing. And I know they've also hired an artist like
Mm-hmm.
full time, or well, she's one of the primary employees to just
Mm-hmm.
make their style look a lot better. Because yeah, you look at a Value Without Wind, it looks rough. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, especially that was before we even had the flood of trash that we have on Steam right now. You
Yeah.
know, it was still a pretty rough looking game, but it
Mm-hmm.
was still mechanically interesting.
Yeah. I think that's what we can really say about all of Arkane's games. They're very fascinating from a mechanic standpoint. But it always feels like, at least from my point of view, that the games that I like from Arkane, they just never seem to go further with them. Like
Mm.
a Valley Without I just my tongue completely got tied there. A Valley Without Wind 1, I really liked that concept, and then they, of course, completely changed that for 2. And I was really getting into that kind of design, but then it just kind of like it never really seemed to hook me beyond just that initial. Oh, so this is what the game is about.
Hmm.
And what you were just saying regarding Stars Beyond Reach, that is reminding me a lot of what they've been struggling with Clockwork Empires. Now, I know you've been keeping an eye on Stars Beyond Reach. Were you following anything regarding Clockwork Empires over the last, my God, I don't even know how long it's been in development at this point.
No, you're probably the only one who's talked about it near me, so.
Alright. So what they've been doing with the game is over the last 55 alpha slash betas, they've been trying to, again, as what they're doing with Stars Beyond Reach, we're trying to, quote unquote, find the fun. They're trying to get the base mechanics down. And they've been altering the basic progression model and how you improve your colony multiple times throughout the early access. They originally had just like no limit. You can just put things down. People will appear periodically. Then they attached a limit based on the number of beds you have. Then they made that into certain buildings would promote colony growth. And then they altered buildings had to be repaired and they got rid of that. Like the basic mechanics of the game were there, but they've been having a tough time extrapolating that out into a full-fledged game.
Mm.
And it's like it's a far cry from what they did with Prison Architect, who I think found their groove like relatively early in that game's early access. I think from what I remember, it's like Alpha 12, 15, somewhere around there was when you really got to see the foundation of that game being set, and then the rest was just enhancing the systems. But with Clockwork Empires, and I think probably what happened with Stars Beyond Reach, was that it was just very challenging to get everything working in harmony together.
Hmm. Yeah, and there'd just be pure. This is all from the forums and what I read about it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually play any of it because it was in closed beta, but I know a lot of complaints for this, like midway through, it just quits being fun.
Mm-hmm.
And they were having a real hard time just, I mean, from what I gather, they rejiggered the entire game 3 times over
Mm-hmm.
just to see if it would actually work this time around. And it seemed like they'd
Mm-hmm.
get close and then something would kind of fall apart.
And
So,
and that's never a good thing to hear in the game when basic mechanics and systems have to be altered halfway to three-fourths of the way through a game's development. That's
yeah. And when we were starting to hear that towards the end, I'm like,
mm-hmm.
oh no, Chris. Oh no.
Yeah, that's when That's when the red flag goes up in my mind. And
And
I,
it had to be hard to pull the plug on that because you can just imagine this was not a good year.
mm-hmm,
And I think they have some ideas they want to pursue afterwards, and doubtless that's what they'll try and do
mm-hmm,
after AI War 2 comes out. Um,
mm-hmm.
but until then, well, they just manage as they can.
Yeah, I know. And I'm looking at their Kickstarter. I mean, they're definitely off to a good start. I want to see if I can get in touch with Chris again, see if we can have him back on. Because it'd be great to follow up with him, because I know I've been talking to him for a good 3, maybe 4 years now. I think he was one of our first guests on the podcast. And
Hmm.
like talking to him, like there's always been like ups and downs. I think 20 I want to say 2014, 2015 was when things were doing really well, and then things started again dip again. And it's just very hard. One of the things we've been talking about is it's very hard to keep a studio running sometimes unless you have hit after hit after hit. It's very easy to put yourself into a bad position if you're not careful.
Yeah. And just, I think it was just kind of 1-2 punch of
Mm-hmm.
not enough money or not enough sales because they used to have really good sales
Mm-hmm.
up until recently.
Mm-hmm.
And combine that with just a bad year of not really releasing anything was
Mm-hmm.
just they had to let some people go. It doesn't seem like they're like we're going to go bankrupt if AI
Mm-hmm.
War 2 fails or anything like that, but certainly they would probably see another downsizing if uh, things don't turn around in
Yeah.
their favor.
Yeah, but why do you think that would even what would happen? Is it just you think they were too like ambitious, or it seems like they made these games that were like really good at the time, but just didn't have the mechanics to back them up, or what, or they just weren't accessible?
I I don't know what the deal with Starward Rogue was.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe it just wasn't enough marketing, which, as we all know, is really freaking hard to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, SBR, maybe they shot too far from the moon and just couldn't quite stick the landing. You would have to definitely talk with Chris about that because I'm not even going to try and
Yeah.
speculate. Um, what was, yeah, they had AI War Fleet, because AI War Fleet Command and the Last Federation were basically their two big earners, especially AI War, which has more than paid for
Mm-hmm.
itself.
Yeah.
But then for some reason in 2015 to 2016, the sales just took a dive for
Mm.
no real explainable
Mm-hmm.
reason other than Steam did a lot of different changes to how they sell games to gamers.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't surprise me if that was just kind of the big thing. They were no longer being seen by as many people, so they just
Ah, yeah, they didn't get,
lost the
yeah,
sales.
lost the
They didn't
sales.
get the
Makes sense.
eyeballs. And definitely that's been a criticism of Steam, and I'm glad they're taking that seriously by the
Mm-hmm.
sounds of it, but we'll see how that works itself out in the next. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's supposed to be next month or this month that they're supposed to do another overhaul of their main page.
Mm-hmm. And then talking about Steam and discoverability, we could probably spend another hour on that
Oh,
one
definitely.
easily. I guess to wrap up this part, and then I think we'll move on and talk about one final topic then, because I think we're approaching about 45 minutes in terms of actual talking. Seems like we just started. That's the scary part. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens with AI Wars 2. Again, I think that was their big game. So there's any game that definitely has a shot from them to excite people for a Kickstarter, it would probably be that one versus them just trying a completely untested idea and going to Kickstarter.
Yeah. And he's definitely wanted to work on a sequel to the previous games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, have to have the right timing for it.
Yeah.
And maybe this one works. I would definitely like to see it be funded.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the main question is are they launching it at a bad time when gamers' trust in Kickstarter is not exactly at the highest point right now? Um,
I don't know. Yeah.
it's I can't say at this point. They certainly got off to a good start. As long as they keep that going, I don't see why they couldn't manage it, but we'll see.
Yeah. I would say the big thing for them to really work on, I would like to see, would be trying to do more with accessibility. I think that's always been one of their weakest aspects of their games. They're just
Mm.
very hard to jump into. The last Federation may have been a very great game, but it just was just impossible to break into unless you already knew what you were doing.
Mm.
Hmm.
I wouldn't dispute that. I know that's one of the big things they're selling in the Kickstarter is we want to make it very easy for people to just jump right in rather than be presented with a menu of, oh my gosh, what are all these options? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's great for veteran players, and certainly they
Mm-hmm.
said they'll still appeal to that. But I won't dispute that. You throw AI war like just flat at somebody and say, "Here, learn it in the next 5 minutes." They're gonna go, what?
I think the
Uh,
tutorial takes like a good 20, 30 minutes to go
oh
through.
wow, really?
Yeah, there's a lot of mechanics, and I think even that tutorial is slightly out of date because they
Yeah.
had last expansion. And I mean, the kicker of the game is too, you don't have to learn everything at the same time, but you have to learn everything at the same time. It's that really
Mm-hmm.
weird game where it's like, yeah, it's good that you know this, but you don't need to know it right now. But the
Mm-hmm.
RNG could decide, oh, by the way, you need to remember that mechanic from a while ago because it's important now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And again, when it works, like it's one of those games like Crusader Kings 2 that you could just play it, every day and have something completely different.
Oh, yeah.
And right now, are they still at version 8.0 of AI Wars?
Yeah, they haven't done any development on it since the last expansion. The last expansion was kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we're gonna finish everything up and just kind of leave it.
Mm-hmm.
We're quote unquote done with this game. And that
Hmm.
wasn't really due to like flagging sales. It was just we've been working on this game so long. I think we just need to leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah, take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know. Yeah, I know it was like basically being run by Keith, their main
Mm-hmm.
programmer. He was doing a lot of the work on it, and I think Keith was because the game's been out since late 2009. And I just looked up the date. So a game that gets 7 years of expansions and content, I think you get the right to say when you end the development on it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's move on then to probably our last topic then, because again, for those of you who've watched this either live or recorded, who've seen our podcast, you know the three of us we could probably spend 2, 3 more hours talking tonight. There's very little that would stop us, I think.
Mm.
But this is the other topic that I was talking about. I think I just made a post about today, and that is regarding the amiibos and why it looks like the amiibos are dying a really slow death. I don't know if you guys are pulling up the live chat, but I just put one of my amiibos here on the screen here of Chibi Robo, which have either you even know who that character is?
Uh,
Chibi.
yeah. I've seen the TV Robo characters already before. Yep.
Okay, well that's good. At least it won't be completely unknown to people. So
Hmm.
as we know, the amiibos. It seems like it's been like a year since they've been out, but when I check, it's only been 2 years since the amiibos first appeared, and
Jeez.
they have certainly, I think, dropped drastically. Like there's like very little attention being given to them. I don't even remember the last time I've seen a commercial for them on TV,
Hmm.
and it just seems like Nintendo had a really big winner on their hands, and then they just dropped the ball on them. And
What do you mean by drop the ball? Like, do you think oversaturation is one of the ways they drop the ball? Because
I
like,
think like they just really haven't done anything with them. I think that's been one of the key problems. Like when you look at Lego Dimensions or even Skylanders, You see them add like new games. They add like new characters, new content. Like
Hmm.
there's a reason to keep playing them or keep collecting. But with the amiibos, there just isn't. Like with our my little friend here, Chibi Wo. I can't talk. Chibi Robo. I'm fairly certain there's like very little functionality for this guy in any other Nintendo games.
Ah, yeah.
And I think part of it is the fact that they release the amiibos, they're not tied to a game like Skylanders, Disney Infinity,
Hmm.
or Lego Dimensions. So it gives them more flexibility, but they haven't really done anything with it.
Yeah.
And I guess for both of you, what do you make of this whole toys to life market that we're seeing right now?
Uh,
Am I the only one who's been
what? No,
playing?
no, you didn't really say who you were directing the question to.
Either, both of you.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, Go ahead, Tim. What do you think?
I I was kind of following Jim Sterling talking about amiibos
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not really involved with Nintendo except from a very far distance, which kind of hurts because I grew up on Nintendo, but
Mm-hmm.
eh. It seemed like to me his complaints were mostly they would intentionally limit products right out the gate so that you couldn't even get your hands on them except through third party people.
Mm-hmm.
And well, guess what they did? They jacked the price up
Yeah.
until it was insanity.
Yeah.
It
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't also surprise me if they kind of just ran out of steam on ideas. Like
Mm-hmm.
developers just kind of said, we don't care this much about amiibos. We'd rather just focus on the games themselves.
Yeah. And
And like the last big one was there's a dungeon locked behind an amiibo for Legend of Zelda. And
mm-hmm.
I know people just went insane over that because, like, are you really freaking kidding me? This hard to
Mm-hmm.
find amiibo is the only way to experience this content.
Mm-hmm.
Just and yeah, when you get right down to it, it's like, why don't you just sell it as DLC?
Yeah. Or package, or what they could have done is have DLC, and then the amiibo could be an alternative way of having it. So you basically get your cake and eat it too. The people who have the amiibos, they get the benefits, and the people who aren't going, scour Targets and Best Buys at 8 o'clock in the morning, they'll still be able to get access to it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's
it's
kind of like where my big problem was. Right now, the only two games that have made the most use of the amiibos were Smash Brothers and Mario Maker. But even then, they didn't really do anything with them.
yeah. I it, and it's just such a limited pool of characters they could pull it from too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to kind of use a comparison, I have technically gotten stuck in the pop vinyl craze. No one else heard that. But what surprised me about pop vinyls in general was just how many markets they touched, all the way from core games on PC and consoles to
Mm-hmm.
like really off the wall anime or TV stuff.
Mm-hmm.
With Nintendo, they're basically stuck with their own first party characters, and well, there's only so many things you can release there before you kind of run out of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you could like recolor Link, I suppose, but
Or they have a retro link too now.
yeah, you could do stuff like that, but there's only so much you can pull from.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't surprise me if Nintendo just kind of decided it was a failure and is slowly letting it die.
And that's definitely been like we saw the same thing with motion controls. The first 2 years, Nintendo was touting it. We saw all the games, and then just quietly went away, never to be seen or heard from again. And
Hmm.
while you've been talking, I was looking on GameStop to see like what are like the new amiibos coming out and stuff like that. And I'm looking here, and they were doing like a lot of like ancillary characters. Like I saw that there was going to be a Boo amiibo,
Mm.
Waddly D. If you're a Nintendo fans, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not, you're just wondering what the hell am I saying. But I'm looking at them, and I just don't see like why? Like, what's the point of buying them? Like, what am I going to get from them that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise? And I mean, there's the collectability factor. I mean, as a long, standing Nintendo fan, I have a whole lot of amiibos behind me right now of all the characters that I love. And if they ever fall on me, that would basically be it. You will
Huh.
never hear from me again if that happens. But even I'm having trouble getting excited about more of them. Like, I'll do a quick check. Like, I know they're doing like another big release of them, but again, like, why should I get Animal Crossing amiibos? I know, I remember like last year there was rumors and hints that they were going to do an entire Pokemon amiibo brand. All the Pokemon in amiibo form.
Huh,
They
I'm
really
surprised they
should have
haven't.
done
I'm
that.
surprised they haven't done that yet. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and I
mean,
don't,
geez Louise.
and I haven't heard of anything else from that. I even before this stream earlier today, I went on Nintendo's official site to see what's coming down the line, and the only things I've been seeing are for the next Zelda game. They're doing like a special Link, special Zelda. I don't know if they're going to have any kind of functionality to them, but that is it.
That makes no sense that they haven't already hit the Pokemon which is, I can't even say arguably. No, it is the most marketable franchise they
Mm-hmm.
own. And
Yeah,
I think
Pokemon Go anyway.
if any of the things for as far as Amiibo goes,
Mm-hmm.
you think Pokemon would be the first. I mean, it lends
Mm-hmm.
itself so well. I mean, there's 779.
I don't know
There's
anymore.
almost 1,000 of those little things,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, and it's already in any and every other form of media. You'd think they would automatically have
Mm-hmm.
capitalized on that, and plus, you already have numerous teams who are willing to make content to support those kind of Meebos.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you know what I mean, like you'd imagine seeing a Pokemon toy that you could interact with on a video game before you saw a Mario toy that you
Mm-hmm.
could interact with a video game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems like a very wasted opportunity
Yeah.
from Nintendo's part.
I know,
Yeah, I
and
can't believe they haven't done it either. That just
they did Animal Crossing. I think that could have been
yeah.
their like big attempt, like their way to try and see the market was there, but it just there was just like very little rhyme or reason. Like, I just looked up the Boo amiibo. The only fancy thing about it is that it glows in the dark, which okay, that's cool and all, but why would I want to buy this? Like, what is the point of it? And I'm looking at the games that it's going to be used for, and there's just like nothing there. Like, there's it's for the Mario parties, Hyrule Warrior, stuff like that. But
What would you do with it in the Mario
exactly,
Party?
like, what am I going to do with these figures?
So
I'm
wait, does it unlock a new character in the Mario Party? Does it? What does
I,
it? What does it? What does it actually do? What is it doing?
I don't know, and that's the problem. Like, the Skylanders, they have like a very brilliant thing. You
Yeah.
get a
Oh, yeah.
character, you play with them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's very marketable. You know,
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
that see the characters on the show or characters on the game, they want to get that character and it does more stuff. Like it makes sense.
Yeah, and like when you have like the store exclusive variants or the harder to find ones, they'll show up. They'll maybe have better stats. But I think they did a really good job, or a really good job with the Skylanders again, of saying, we're on this exclusive content, but you can play the game. You don't need to spend God knows
Yeah.
how much money on every Skylanders to get through the game.
Yep.
But the more you get, the more value it adds to the game, which then adds value to the figures, and it's just that positive feedback loop. And we're just not seeing that with the Nintendo Amiibos. Like from like a collectability front, I love growing up being a Nintendo fan, having figurines of like Olimar, the Pikmin, Captain Falcon. That's great, but other than just sitting up on my shelf up there and another shelf, you don't see that in the camera for those of you watching this. They're just collecting dust at this point. And that's not the point of the Toys to Life market. They're supposed to have some kind of
Yeah.
interactivity.
Yeah, and when you try to compare collectability to actual interactivity, interactivity is going to win 100% of the time.
Hmm.
So if you see a merchandise or a product that you are designing or making or putting out,
Hmm.
and it's starting to lean more towards collectability than interactivity, then you're gonna see a problem. It's gonna start, it's gonna lean because there are less people that are into the collectability aspect than
Hmm.
there are the people that actually want to experience and
Yeah.
interact with that.
Yeah. And again, I think Nintendo just missed so many ways to go further with this. Like I was talking about this in the post. I would have loved for them to do like super size amiibo, sort of like what they did with like the giant Skylanders. Like imagine they had like a 2x size like Ridley from Metroid,
Yeah.
or amiibos out from like the final Smashes in Smash Brothers.
Yeah, oh yeah, kind of like how like all the Smash Brothers games allowed you to collect little
Yeah.
trophies. I think that's actually where they got the amiibo. I think I was reading
Oh
that's
yeah.
where they got the amiibo thing from. In the Smash Brothers
Yeah.
games, you can collect trophies and view them
Mhm.
on platforms. They don't do anything. I mean, they tell you little descriptions, but
Yeah.
you can get smashes of their ultimate abilities and stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, this would have just been like amazing. Like have like a I'm giving ideas. Like parents are gonna hate me for this, but have like a Final Smash, store exclusive. One at Best Buy, one at Target, one at Toys R Us, and people would go crazy for that stuff. They would be. Parents would be up
Hmm.
at 8 o'clock in the morning and take to get those for their kids come Christmas or the holiday season. But
Yeah.
it's just missing. And now, I guess here's a question for both of you. Have you had a chance to look at like the Lego Dimension stuff? That's the one Toys of Life that I have not had gotten my hands on yet.
I know about it. I
Hmm.
didn't think. No, never mind. It's interesting. I'll give
Hmm.
them that. I like the idea of just you get these characters and you can scan them into the game, and you got them available to play with.
Hmm.
Other than that, I don't really have a comment on it.
Hmm.
It sounds just like Skylanders, like
Yeah.
it's trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, but they're doing more the creative route than Skylanders is more
Oh, really?
PvE, or
Hmm.
is it
Yeah.
PvP?
Yeah, it's both. It does have both elements to it, but it's
Yeah.
more
Okay.
PvE. It's Skylanders. When I was reading about it, it is literally more like a mini childish version of Diablo 3.
Yeah.
Only you collect your characters instead of just having the base characters. You can collect your characters. You can bring your. Believe it or not, the Skylanders toys actually have like memory card data in them.
Yeah.
So like every time you take your character and go to a friend's and play on his Skylander thing,
Hmm.
it saves all the data that you and your
Yeah.
friend do and levels that character up, gets some new
Hmm.
moves. Then you can go home and place them on your Skylanders thing, and he'll have all the stuff he learned.
Yeah.
So
And then like the brilliant part is that I think a lot of their games have forwards compatibility. So if you get the Series 2 Skylanders, you can use that in the third
yeah,
game,
yep.
and so on and so forth.
Yeah. They took the Pokemon route and they just literally made their own little spin on it, which was really unique though. Really
Yeah.
very unique though.
Yeah, and speaking about again like having the foundation to keep growing, Skylanders was good. I'm looking at Lego Dimensions right now. They have like the Harry Potter set. They have Doctor
Ah, okay.
Who, Simpsons, Adventure
Yeah,
Time.
Okay, so they have more licenses then.
Yeah.
yeah. The Avengers, I believe, are there.
But do you think wait, but if they're but that doesn't make any sense. If they're doing it with Legos and they have a characters like the Avengers,
Hmm.
then isn't oh wait, no, because the amiibos aren't owned by Lego, and Amiibos are two separate properties.
Yes.
That's the Nintendo.
Yes.
Oh, what about what's the Disney one?
Disney
Disney.
Infinity.
Okay,
And
wouldn't that compete with the Legos? Because Disney owns the rights to
not
Marvel as well.
Infinity shut
anymore.
down last
Yeah.
year.
Oh, did it really?
Hmm.
Oh, I
Yeah.
must have missed that. Oh no, I didn't know that. Yeah,
They
Yeah.
wow.
they they quietly shut it down and out.
Why? Just they weren't making the sales?
I believe that was part of it. And
Hmm.
didn't they go through a change of management again? I'm trying to remember. Or is that Star Wars? Could have been Star Wars, actually.
Star
Um,
Wars is also owned by Disney now.
Hmm.
yeah, I think they just Disney's in this weird management stage with gaming where
Hmm.
they're not sure what they want exactly, so they basically just shut it down because it wasn't doing as well as I think they wanted,
Yeah.
which, considering their high standards, could mean you're not making $1 billion a year, we're shutting your ass down.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Infinity, I mean, that's another hour long discussion. I know we're going to wrap things up in a few minutes. I was surprised, like, they didn't really. It seemed like they were trying to, like, get, like, the story modes, but you couldn't use all the characters in the stories. So that, like, immediately cut off a lot of those characters. And again, I think this goes back with the Amiibos, and again, just trying to find a function for all these characters. Like, again, like this little Chibi Robo guy, I have no idea if I'll ever use that in a Nintendo game. Much like
Mhm.
all the new Amiibos that are coming out. Like, why am I going to buy a Waluigi one, or a Boo, or
And maybe that was the problem, is that they kind of just relied on it to work in one game, and they didn't realize that maybe we should have been looking at other games to do that. But then
Yeah.
you run into the problem of different teams going, no.
yeah. And then,
Yeah.
of course, let's make this super exclusive dungeon. Let's add, 5 more hours of story, but it's tied to this figurine that you can only buy, for
Yeah.
the first 2 hours of launch, and then you can't get it again. Or there was a time where Amazon did this crazy, like, first come, first serve, like, lottery entry for getting the Amiibos. You had to sign
Uh,
on to Amazon the exact time and hopefully get it in your cart before they sell out. I mean,
Huh.
it was huge for pretty much most of 2014, but there's just nothing really keeping them relevant. And I know there's been rumors of the Nintendo NX. Like, there's been, little snippets and, rumors of rumors being revealed.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure if these amiibos are going to survive to the NX.
Hmm. Well,
And,
make great figurines.
yeah. And again, as long as they don't crush me, they're nice to display.
Yeah.
Right, but we are approaching, or we've probably have gone over an hour in terms of the stream now. And again, if we don't stop, we'll be here who knows how long. So we're going to wrap up our live show now. While I've been talking, as in little exciting, we hit 790 subscribers during
Woohoo.
the hour and 10 minutes of doing this. So thank you everyone who has been subscribing. Again, when we hit 800, I have another little treat plan, and then we're on our way to 9. Other than that, for those of you watching this on the channel now, be sure to tune in for the Perceptive podcast this week. I believe this week is going to be my talk with Chris Macaulay. He was the developer behind Venture Forth, which I did a developer live play on Twitch a few weeks ago. It's currently available on the channel. Wait, now I'm not sure. I think I may be confusing. No, I think I'm right. Chris did Venture Forth. No, wait. I think I'm confusing developers now, so I'm just gonna let it go. You'll see the notes tomorrow, Bao. That will be the best way of knowing who's doing what. And our podcast with Tim, that will be going up in a few weeks. And as always, Tim, it's a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we'll definitely have you back on either on our live show or on the Perceptive podcast.
yeah, I'd like to come back.
Right, and James, it's great hanging out with you this week as well. I know we're definitely doing a lot more community interactions or outreach with Game Wisdom, so it's always great to have you on for these.
Yeah, definitely, as always.
All right, so with all that said, as always, thank you so much for watching both the Game Wisdom live show and, of course, the content here on the YouTube channel and GameWisdom.com. Be sure to check out that Patreon campaign. Again, you have until October 31st for the early bird pricing. And be sure to check out the Twitch stream and more content here, as always, daily. So again, thanks a lot for watching. You will see me tomorrow with another critical thought, and we'll talk again live next week. Again, thanks for watching, and see you all then. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoy it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share with your friends. It always helps out. For daily posts on all manner of game design and industry topics, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the site and everything that I do, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign. If we can hit goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy, and I'll be able to support myself and my household. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at GW for updates throughout the day and random thoughts from me. And lastly, you can find me on Twitch right over there at GW for daily streams most nights around 10 Eastern. Thanks again for watching the video, and be sure to check out more great content coming to the Game Wisdom channel real soon.